Hello and welcome to Global Eye. Curbing illegal immigration and securing the borders has been the biggest promise that US presidential candidates are making to the American voter as they appeal to citizens for their vote. Both President Biden and former President Trump visited the US-Mexico border on Thursday to showcase their efforts in securing the borders. Reports claim about 2.5 million undocumented migrants crossed into the United States through this border in 2023. Migrants has overwhelmed processing facilities and pushed social services in major American cities to the brink. According to recent polls, 18% Americans feel that immigration is the biggest problem facing the United States. Border safety concerns heightened after the body of 22-year-old student Laken Riley was discovered last week in a jungle in Athens. A 26-year-old Venezuelan migrant has been arrested on charges of murder and several other felony counts. Donald Trump and the Republican Party have been blaming the Biden government for the student deaths, accusing the government of not doing enough to stop border crises. Meanwhile, President Biden has urged Donald Trump to join hands with him and support the bipartisan border security bill. Joining us now to take this forward are former Indian ambassador to the United States, Meera Shankar. Also joining us is Douglas Rivlin, Senior Director of Communications for America's Voice. Douglas, if I can begin with you, give us a sense of what's the worry when it comes to immigration laws in the United States. Biden is under a lot of pressure to act. He's not being able to pass the bipartisan immigration law in the Congress. What are you expecting in terms of executive orders in the next few months ahead of the elections?
Well, thanks for having me on. Good to join you. The opponents of immigration have been steadfast in blocking any kind of reform or any kind of legislation to improve things at the border. We spent the last 4 or 5 months in Washington debating a bipartisan two-party solution. And then Donald Trump said, no, I don't want any solutions before Election Day. So we're back to square one, where we're unable to invest more money in our border security and processing, and where we're the aid to our allies like Ukraine and Taiwan and Israel and other countries has been held up because of the demands by Republicans that it had to address the border. And then they stopped the bills because it didn't address the border. They demanded that it not address the border. So they need to make up their mind. We don't have an equal partner for the president to actually move things forward. So he's going to have to do some things legislatively. The question is he going to sort of adopt the talking points and the approach of the Republicans, which is to try and stop immigration from happening? Or is he going to adopt what I think is the smarter path, which would be to channel that immigration through visas, through ports of entry, so that it is more controlled and orderly, and we get people to work in an economy that is desperate for more workers here in the United States.
Right. Douglas, one more question that I'd like to ask you. The current draft that the Biden administration has come up with in terms of curbing illegal immigration, what does it really entail?
Well, they're talking about making it harder for people to ask for asylum and to prevent people from being able to ask asylum under certain circumstances, which we know is a recipe for turning people around and sending them back to danger. And I think you need to be careful about the illegal immigration. Asylum is a right under U.S. law. 2.5 million people have entered the United States and been arrested. It's not like they've just walked in. About 20% of them are sent to incarceration and jails of some sort. About 30% are returned and removed immediately. And then the remaining 50% are put in deportation proceedings where they can ask for asylum, but they are in the legal process of being deported by the United States. A much smaller percentage actually do anymore. And most people are trying to turn themselves in so that they can ask for asylum.
Right. Let me go across to Ambassador Meera Shankar. Ambassador Meera Shankar, this has been a contentious issue over the years. Very recently, we heard from the U.S. authorities that Indians are illegal immigrants living in the United States. Over changes in these laws and the result of the election could impact the illegal Indian immigrants into the United States?
Well, I don't think, the government of India supports illegal immigration. And legal migration of people from India to the U.S. has been happening. So our preference, obviously, would be for the system in the U.S. to have easier to process legal immigration and make it difficult for illegal immigration, because it is clearly an issue which alarms Americans today. It's a difficult issue. It's been a difficult issue under Donald Trump because the measures he took, putting, a ban on travel from Muslim countries and then separating children from parents, that evoked a backlash. One was struck down by the court. The other, he had to revoke himself because of the backlash. And on the other hand, there's this belief that Democrats have been a bit lax, but actually quite a number have been detained, as was mentioned by the previous speaker. And President Biden has said that he has a bill in the Congress for $20 billion for strengthening border security. And this bill actually proposes to increase the number of judges who deal with immigration cases, to increase the number of officers who would be on, or people who would be on border patrols, to increase the number of individuals who would process cases. So it would really be strengthening the border security apparatus. But it's been struck down for partisan reasons by the Republicans who don't want to go ahead with it because of Donald Trump, since this is the hot button issue which he is going to play up during his presidential campaign. President Biden has made an appeal to President Trump to join him. But I think for Indians, really, the issue of how legal employment visas are treated, the H-1B visas, because last time Donald Trump was there, he made it very difficult for our software engineers and workers to go and work on site in the U.S. Similarly, made it difficult for legal migration. I think that is really our concern, but we do understand and appreciate the concern in America over illegal immigration because it's something which, overwhelms the system.
Okay. So 18% of Americans, according to a Reuters Ipsos poll, Ambassador Shankar, feel that immigration is the biggest problem that the United States is facing right now. But, of course, there are issues related to political extremism, which are even greater. But, Douglas, if I can come back to you on the issue of how the electorate sees it and how sensitive an issue is this, how do you think this issue is going to heat up in the run-up to November elections? And what is the alternative, or what is the plan that Donald Trump could bring on the table?
So the ambassador is quite right that Trump is opposed to legal immigration, and while he was in office, made it very difficult for legal immigration. Did not really make a dent in so-called illegal immigration, and didn't reduce the population of undocumented immigrants living in the United States. He is promising, or maybe you might say threatening, a mass deportation program where all 11 million or more undocumented immigrants, many of whom, as you say, are from South Asia, would be expelled from the country. They're talking about reducing legal immigration by 60 or 70%. This would be a nightmare for the U.S. economy. And it just runs counter to where most Americans are. Most Americans want a balanced approach. They want a secure border, obviously. They want to have laws enforced, and they also favor legal immigration. They think people should be able to come with visas to help our economy. Our economy is booming right now. It's creating more jobs than we're creating people to fill them. So we have labor shortages in a number of sectors, particularly in healthcare, technology, hospitality, and agriculture. But what Trump is putting on the table is really a nationalist, keep them all out and keep them all down kind of approach. And that has not really worked very well for him in 2018, 2020, and 2022 elections. I don't think it's going to work very well for him this time around either. We just had a special election for a congressional district in New York, just outside of New York City, where we've received a lot of Venezuelan, in particular, migrants, and the immigration issue has been quite inflamed, including about immigrants and crime. And the Democrat, the person opposed to Trump's party, won that race handily because they leaned in. They talked about immigration. They talked about the need for legal immigration and legal channels and people to be able to work if they live here. And that was the winning message. I think that's going to be the winning message this year.
Okay, Douglas Rivlin, thank you very much for joining us on the program. We'd like to thank Ambassador Meera Shankar also for taking out time on the program. We're taking from the American election, and we will be discussing what's happening in the Taiwan Strait, why we need to have our eyes there, what's happening, what are China's moves in the region. We will be joined by strategic affairs expert Brahma Chalani on the same, on the other side. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.